Do you ever wake up one morning and realize that you bought stuff at 2:30 a.m. on eBay? Yeah, so that's what this is. So I was browsing eBay one late night, as you do, and I was like, what's the socket 370 motherboard market looking like? Oh, it's still expensive, like normal. All the boards are like $100+, at least for anything with a remotely respectable chipset and board design. Then I saw this, listed as 4 parts not working. I didn't even know this had the box with it. It wasn't very clear in the picture. It was a little bit much. I threw a lowball offer out. We ended up negotiating, through the system, and so I got this for $40. But if this works, that's a pretty good value compared to $100+. I'm just saying. Now, it was listed as 4 parts not working, and it had very clear capacitor problems, as we'll soon see in the pictures. Now, the seller listed this as untested, which, if you know anything about eBay, if it's listed as untested for parts, it usually means tested and it doesn't work. Now, I'm not saying that's what the seller did in this case, but it's just kind of a general trend with eBay. You have to be kind of careful with this untested stuff. Now, there is a couple things about this that make me not as upset about $40 for a likely broken motherboard. One is the box. I had no idea this had the box. Never seen an Abit box like this. It's got the soccer ball, football, whatever, which I guess is appropriate theming given that the World Cup is wrapping up. So this is an Abit SA6, more specifically the SA6R. I believe there's a version of this board that has integrated graphics. This is the version without. So this is an Intel 815 chipset motherboard, socket 370. Now, the couple things that made me less hesitant to buy it was it comes with a CPU and a heatsink. This is kind of a cool Intel heatsink. This is like, it reminds me of like the Mendocino Celeron heatsinks, but it's a little bigger. This has a 1 gigahertz Coppermine Pentium 3 in it right now. I don't really need another one of those. And the heatsink, I can always use more socket, 370, socket 7 heatsink. So not all of the cost went completely to the motherboard. This is probably like maybe $15 of value right here. So effectively the motherboard is roughly $25. It's still probably broken, but we'll find out. Hopefully this thing posts. If it posts, then we will replace the capacitors because it's a capacitor plague era system, and yeah, these caps are not doing they're not doing hot. Now, I'm hoping that the untested part is actually true and that this thing may actually work, because the board is actually in pretty good shape other than the capacitors. I don't really see any like damage on the back. It doesn't look like any rework has been done to this thing. And it's actually fairly clean, all things considered. In fact, I kind of wonder if this wasn't even really used that much at all. So, is there a manual in here? Not a manual. We got this brief installation guide. Oh, I guess the R has a High Point Ultra 100 controller on it. I've heard mixed things on these High Point controllers, so I don't know if I'd actually use that. We got a brand new 80 wire IDE cable. Those are always nice to have because they like to rip apart all the time. We have the driver disc. That's cool. Be kind of cool if it had the Abit Linux distro. That's a rabbit hole I want to dive into at some point, because Abit is my favorite vintage motherboard manufacturer. Really sad Abit died. They did a lot of really cool, interesting, pioneering stuff for enthusiasts with like overclocking. Usually very good and stable boards, except capacitors kind of like to blow up on them, but that's just, it's literally a lottery with every single old motherboard from this time, so I can't really blame Abit too much for that. All right, so the plan is I'm going to hook this up. I'm going to throw some RAM in here and throw a graphics card in here. Just see if it, see if it has any life at all. Ideally, it posts. Even if it's not stable because of the capacitors, as long as it posts, that means the board is alive, and we can probably get it revived and stable by replacing these capacitors. Oh, I forgot to plug the power in. Yeah, when I said throw this on the test bench, what, you thought I meant I was going to actually bolt it into the test bench? No. We're not that sophisticated here. Anyways, I threw a 3D Rage 2 in here for video, some amount of RAM. I did take the heatsink off. There was hardly any thermal paste on there, so I put some extra on there. So I'm going to apply power. And we got a red light. Hopefully we don't get a capacitor exploding in my face. Oh. It has power. That's better than nothing. No way. Yo! Oh my gosh. I don't believe it. With all those capacitors, I'm turning it off. It says there's only 32 megs of RAM. I don't believe that's true. But okay, I turned it off just because I don't want to run those capacitors any longer than necessary. But wow. What? I totally thought this thing would be dead. Let me see how hot these caps are. Yeah, they're not warm. Usually when a capacitor is leaking and blown, they get really hot. That really didn't get that hot. The heatsink got a little bit warm, though. Ooh, that thing heated up. I could have swore this was bigger than 32 megabytes. It doesn't really have a good label on it. Although looking at the date stamp on these chips, I know you can absolutely read that, I know. It's 50th week of 97, so this might actually be a 32 megabyte stick. Don't know why, I was thinking it was like 256. That's working. I want to get into the BIOS now. Also, the RAM slot is really crunchy. Very good sign. This is a very, very good sign. I kind of wonder if this board just wasn't used very much. You know, it's in the box, it has a lot of the accessories, it's just missing the manual. And oh, I got the soft menu 3. Oh, I love Abit so much. Oh, this is so cool. Let's see PC health. Oh, I thought the CPU was at 75, and I was like, oh no. No, CPU is at 48. My power supply does not have negative 5 volts, so we're reading negative 63 volts. Of course, you know, we pull negative voltage out of the air here. I mean, voltages look okay. For having such terrible looking capacitors, I'm surprised at just how effective this is working. Dates to 2001 by default. I wonder which version of the BIOS this has. Not that I bothered to look up the BIOS versions or anything, so I want to at least see what the date mark is. February 2002. That might be the latest BIOS. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, now that we know that this thing works, I'm going to go ahead and buy some capacitors for this. So I guess I'll see you guys again in a week or two once those arrive. So I went ahead and ordered capacitors from Mouser. You could also use DigiKey, but I just prefer Mouser. I went ahead and got these Panasonic low ESR electrolytic ones. I've used these on other motherboards like my BH6 with great success, and they're pretty affordable. There's probably better options out there, but these ones work fine, and I haven't had an issue with them yet. Now, there's two approaches you could do. You could either just replace all the type that are bad, which in this board's case are the 1500 microfarad ones, or you can replace every cap on the board. I personally like to just replace everything on the board since I'm already in here and ordering caps. And just because a cap isn't bulging or leaking doesn't mean it hasn't started to dry up. And with these capacitor plague era motherboards, I just prefer to play it safe and just do everything at once. This took me about 3 hours to do, and this was my first time using my new vacuum desoldering station. It worked pretty well, other than some joints would just not fully clear out, even after putting on fresh solder. Those can always be a fun challenge to put the new caps in. But once I got the entire board done, now came the moment of truth, and seeing if I had broken the motherboard. Thankfully, I hadn't, so now it's time to move on to some stability testing. I left the 1GHz Pentium 3 that came with the board in it, and I dropped in 256 megabytes of PC-133 RAM, a GeForce 2 GTS, and a Sound Blaster Live. threw a quick clean install of Windows 98 on there and just a standard driver set, and began running tests to see how she performed. Other than one Windows protection error after a reboot during driver installation, the board seems to be working great. The performance is right where I'd expect it to be, and I let 3D Mark 99 and 2000 loop for probably about an hour each, and there was no crashes or freezes or anything like that, so I think this board is successfully revived. So the gamble paid off. All in all, with the motherboard and the capacitor cost, this is $62. That's with tax, with shipping, and that's including the 1 gigahertz Pentium 3, which is probably worth like $15 to $20 on its own. So really, the board is probably actually only cost maybe around $40 to $45, not counting that. For a socket 370 board, that's a great value. But of course, again, I took a pretty big gamble. I could have just been out like $40, and well, I mean, I did get a CPU out of it, so maybe I would only been out about 20-ish, but still, I don't know if I'd recommend doing this strategy, I guess you could say. Maybe if you just have a good feeling about it, but I can't really recommend that you just go and possibly waste your money on a board that's listed as untested or for parts. But just, depending on whether or not the eBay seller is honest and they just didn't actually test it and it has, visibly bad capacitors on it, then maybe, just maybe, replacing the capacitors is all the board is going to need to be revived, which, I mean, the board was working-ish beforehand, but at least now the board should be good for a good couple decades, hopefully. So that's going to do it for this video. This board is definitely going to come up on the channel in the future. I already had another socket 370 Abit board as well, but that one has a VIA chipset, and I definitely prefer the Intel chipsets a little bit. Not to say that that VIA board is bad. I've had decent success with it. It's just VIA tends to be a little weird sometimes, so this will probably be my go-to socket 370 test board from now on. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.